Hey everyone, so I wasn't actually sure if I was gonna film anything like talky for this vlog, but just in case, I want to include this. I'm recording this, so yeah, I haven't talked on camera for a little while, and I pulled the same shit I always do, so, you know, I'm not even gonna apologize. I feel like if you've been subscribed to my channel now, like, that was Khaleesi landing on the floor. If you've been subscribed to my channel, like, you know at this point that I just get really busy with my real personal life, and I can't justify making YouTube a priority when I have so much other shit I have to do. So as much as I love making videos and as much as I love you guys, and I've met so many awesome people on here, I can't justifiably make this like my top priority. And so when I have to cut something out of my life, it typically ends up being YouTube. Yeah, so it is Wednesday. It is March 20th, and I did what I always do, and I had another spiral because that's me and I don't know how to be any other way. I don't even want to talk about it. It's just the state of like publishing right now, both traditional publishing and self-publishing, and the fact that it has become a popularity contest, and it's like it's been so difficult for me to just go back to writing for the fun of it and for my passion, because I became really obsessed with writing to market and what can I sell. It didn't really work out the way I was hoping to, but I think that's a blessing in disguise because I burnt myself out, and I realized that I need to slow it down. I need to stop grinding. I need to stop obsessing over publishing and what's gonna sell and, you know, keywords and marketing, and I need to just rein it in a little bit. So it's been a little difficult. It was around mid-February that I burnt out. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's been that long, I guess, but at the same time, it feels like it was forever. I was miserable because I wasn't sure what to write, and what I was writing to publish under my, you know, my secret pen name, you know, they weren't the stories that are in my heart. The erotic romance portion of it, yes, that's what I like to write, but I like urban fantasies and paranormal and shit like that, and I was forcing myself to write contemporaries, and I was coming up with ideas that it's like, what is a short, realistic idea that I can reasonably write 8 to 15,000 words on, and, you know, bing, bang, boom, it's done. But it wasn't fun for me because it didn't have the things that I like vampires and magic and all that stuff. So yeah, I feel like it's been a good experiment in terms of rapid release publishing and keywords and categories, but I wasn't having fun. And at the end of the day, that's the whole reason I started writing in the first place, you know, over 20 years ago, was because it was my escape and it was my passion, and it's the one thing I have the most fun doing, or at least the one thing I used to have the most fun doing. Ever since I burnt out and stopped going on Instagram for a while. I just was trying to get back to a place where I was writing for fun. And I'm not gonna say I got there because I'm already thinking about publishing again, but I'm trying to be a little easier on myself. When did I start this story actually? I don't know. I started this story. If I get to it, I will put it on the screen. But I started this story, I wanna say a couple weeks ago. It's kind of corny, but I'm having fun with it because I decided to go back to my roots, so to speak. I always remembered this one fan fiction that I wrote 20 years ago, maybe closer to like 19 years ago. I'm trying to do the math. I was in a particular fandom. You know what, I'll just be fucking honest with you. I was in fandom, and I've learned, since then that writing like real person fiction is really like icky, so I don't do it anymore. But back in the day, I was in a particular fandom, and I just wrote really off-the-wall AU fics, and somehow became like a BNF. Like, I'm not trying to brag, I'm just trying to give you this idea of why I think I'm a good writer, is because I had people telling me I was, and I've also been struggling with that now, because it's like, shit, were they wrong? Did I like wrongfully grow up thinking this is something I can even do in my life? So yeah, it's been rough, but I decided to kind of visit this story that I wrote back then that I loved. It was my favorite story, had a really good reaction, but I didn't have it on my computer, obviously. This was, like I said, like 19-20 years ago. And so I tried to go to the website that I was publishing my fanfiction on, but that site went down in like 2008, and you can access it on the Wayback Machine or whatever that shit's called, but you can't actually like click through the categories and stuff because they would have had to archive literally every single page on that site. So that was a dead end once I realized that the Wayback Machine doesn't work like that, because I'm a freaking idiot with technology. And then I remembered I had posted it on LiveJournal as well. That was where I was posting a lot of my stuff. And I didn't remember my username, but I remembered my pen name. And so I went to Google and I just searched my pen name, searched the title of the story. I remembered it because it was after a song, so it was really easy to remember. And then I typed LiveJournal and I found it, which was exciting. I found my whole like master post of fiction for that band. And I read this story, and besides the fact that it was awful, like I had no grasp of tense and grammar, and like it wasn't illiterate, but it was just bad. It was really, you could tell that it was written by like a 15-year-old, I also had a lot of like really gross shit in there about like, I want to say misogyny and freaking, I feel like as with most people, you kind of are a product of your time and you have to unlearn that. Like the R slur, I used that to describe things that my character thought were uncool. So that was a little, I kind of, I'm looking around, I'm like, did I really write this? But, which I guess is a good sign, that shows that people can change. But at the heart of that story, like the basic idea, one of my main characters, the love interest, the way I wrote him was awesome. It was just as great as I remembered it, and I fell in love again with that story and with that character because, like I said, I wrote off-the-wall AUs, and while I definitely based characterization on the persona that the band members played up and acted out, I took a lot of liberty with the characterization of them, so I feel safe calling him a character. And I fell in love with him, and I was like, I really want to turn this into an original story, and that is exactly what I did. The only difference is the fanfiction was a slash fanfiction, gay, and that's not me insulting. That wasn't me using like the R slur to call things uncool. It was literally gay fiction. I decided to turn it into a heterosexual romance because that's just what I want to write at the moment. And it's kind of funny that I'm still basing the appearance off of this one band guy. And so it's just funny that even now, 19-20 years later, like he's the same kind of heartthrob to me that he was back then. It's going well, I guess. I've just gotten to the midpoint. Like the midpoint, I'm not sure if it works this way in all romances, but the midpoint for this particular story is basically the culmination of all the romantic and sexual tension, and the two characters are about to like fully hook up for the first time. So I've just gotten myself to the point. I have a little bit of like tension to build before I can finally get to the big sex scene, because they're kind of in a heated moment. It's not quite an argument, but it's almost an argument. And so I'm at the midpoint, but not finished it. I'm currently sitting at 35,936 words, and my goal when I started was 40,000, so it's a little longer than intended. It's a problem. I don't know why I'm such an overwriter, but I also don't understand how I'm an underwriter too, because a lot of the earlier chapters are kind of like gappy and missing things because I didn't know how to describe what was in my head, and I was just like, screw it, I'll come back to it. So I don't know how I can be both an underwriter and an overwriter, but I found a way. I'm not doing what I was doing. I stopped using my writer's notebook. This is just a little cheap spiral notebook I got from UB a million years ago. Like, my writer's notebook was a really nice plum paper spiral notebook, kind of in the same style as like an Erin Condren. And I was just like, I want to say I was like 30 pages away from filling it, and I loved it. I love the idea of filling it. I was so proud. I was like, I've actually finished like a planner. This is great. But that kind of planning was ruining my life, because that was only contributing to my burnout and making me burn out faster, because I became so obsessed with what I was producing. So I'm not using that. I'm not tracking my word count. I'm not tracking my productivity in any meaningful way. I'm just writing. And like, this is literally just for handwriting, because that's how I used to write when I was in high school. That's how I wrote a lot of my fan fiction. It's how I wrote the Gargoyles of Craven trilogy, as I did handwriting and then typed it up. I don't know, I know I'm rambling, and it's probably because I've had coffee. I probably shouldn't. It's almost 5 o'clock and I go to bed at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, so hopefully I'm not too wired to sleep tonight. But I guess I can tell you a little bit about the story. I won't tell you like the title or anything. Basically, it's gonna be kind of a dark romance, but not super dark. Like, it's not gonna be like, it's so hard these days when it's the most popular genre is dark romance, but it's like male characters that are like abusive and like monsters both inside and out. And it's like, I have nothing against monster characters. Like, read Katie Robert, for God's sake. But I don't like dark romances because they're usually just abusive and toxic romances that are then like idealized, and it's just gross. It's so gross. I'm not saying that the writers condone what they're writing, but it feels like a lot of readers, especially over on Book Talk, they don't acknowledge the toxicity, and they glamorize it, and I just don't like dark romance like that. This is kind of like a diet dark romance, because my love interest is basically the devil, and although I plan for the story to end in kind of a happy ending, like my female character, she gets the guy in the end. She loves him, but he's the devil. He's not, I think it's going to be in this universe that he literally is not capable of loving her back the way that she loves him. But by the end of the story, he does care for her in the like best way that he knows how. And he's not going to be abusive. He's like an asshole, but he's not abusive. And he's an asshole in the kind of like, I like to laugh at you way. But yeah, he's the devil. She makes a deal with the devil she wants like riches and popularity and sexual appeal to the men around her, and instead she ends up like having her romantic and sexual awakening with the literal devil, and that's basically the story. I'm trying not to do what I always do, which is obsess over what I can write after this in terms of like sequels and spin-offs and expanding this universe. But I will say that I do have ideas, because I've decided to make this universe kind of, I'm taking from all over for the most part, like the 7 princes of hell, Lucifer, Satan, Asmodeus. I always want to say Asmodeus because I think that's how they say it in Diablo, but Asmodeus, Belphegor. The 7 princes of hell. In this particular story, it's Lucifer, and I'm gonna have it be that the 7 princes all operate collectively as the devil, and she could have ended up making a deal with any of them. It's just it ended up being Lucifer. I was thinking it would then be cool to write like future stories about the other princes, and one of which is actually a woman. Belphegor is a woman. I do have that kind of in the back of my head right now. Apart from like writing out fan casts and kind of coming up with where they reside in hell. I haven't done much plotting for them yet because I don't want to get consumed by that. But I did need to know a little bit before I kind of got into the meat and potatoes of Lucifer in this story. I don't know, I'm feeling kind of excited about it. I'm worried about the future because I don't know how marketable this story is. But then, like I said, I'm trying to not obsess over that kind of thing. So for all I know, this will just be a story I end up posting somewhere for free, for fun, just to see if I get any feedback on it. But I'm having fun with it, and it's going to be interesting once I get there because the majority of the story takes place like in our mortal plane, and the last couple of chapters will take place in hell, which I'm kind of basing on like Dungeons and Dragons and Baldur's Gate 3, like that version of hell. You know, they have the 9 hells. This one, I did not go too in depth with hell, except for the fact that it is, you know, one hellish plane basically. But I've taken inspiration from D&D and BG3, so it's been kind of fun to do a little bit of loose world building because I'm not going to go too much into detail because that's where I'll fall apart. But once we get to hell, the story will take on a little bit more of a fantastical element, which I'm kind of intrigued to get to. And I think if I do write future stories about the other princes of hell, those stories will like just specifically take place in hell because I feel like doing another story where another person from the mortal plane, you know, makes a deal with the devil. It's just a little too on the nose. Like, it's like, all right, we did this already. Like, so I think they're going to be like different ideas that take place in hell already. So that'll be interesting if I ever get to that. But like I said, I'm trying not to obsess. But yeah, so coffee, I'm going to maybe start this scene. I'm on chapter 11 of planned, I think, 20 chapters? Yeah, 20 planned chapters, and chapter 11 is the official midpoint. So I think maybe I'll start it.